and it was my case, 1 woman out of 2 will not be well diagnosed for what it is. So for example, they would be prescribed antidepressant versus it was just some hormonal imbalance aspects that can be treated naturally.
Hello and welcome to The Conversation. I'm Eleanor Sackernode, and today we're speaking to Laetitia Saint Maur. She's got 20 years of experience in scaling digital business for international media and tech companies, namely Hearst and LinkedIn. And she's passionate about sustainability, social impact, diversity, and women's empowerment. She's now founded a women's health-based digital platform, which aims to help women learn, heal, and thrive during the less talked about menopause through online courses, seminars, and consultations. Well, let's start perhaps with the clarity around these concepts. So menopause and perimenopause. What are potential symptoms, and could you give us some key data around the world?
Yes, exactly. So menopause, let's start by menopause. So menopause is technically the day that a woman have 12 consecutive months without any period, right? It will happen from a gender perspective to anyone having periods. And it will happen usually between 45 to 55 years old, but this can happen earlier, right? So menopause, eventually women get this information. I would have thought it would, be a journey of like 60 years old. I was lacking this information. But what is less mainstream is the other concept, is this perimenopause concept, where I stand now, for example. And so perimenopause, to be very clear, is from a few months up to 10 years that can happen prior to be menopaused, right? And this can happen and start happening at the end of your 30s. Nobody's telling us that, right? I think we're lacking of information here. And because of this gradually drop of sexual hormones as estrogen and progesterones, there can be, and this is the bad news of the interview, the good news is that there are solutions. The bad news is that there can be up to 40 different symptoms that affect your body, mind, emotions. So I had a few that I discussed earlier on. 80% of women will go through one symptom or another. There can be up to 40, right? So the most common ones, as mentioned, was blue moon, anxiety, palpitations, hot flash, night sweats, weight gain, to cite a few, right? And to give you some global stats as well around the amplitude of the phenomenon and the impact of these symptoms on women's life. So according to the World Health Organizations, by 2030, 1.2 billion women will be postmenopaused, right? Every woman, 47 million women are menopaused. And regarding their impact on their life and their career, we have some bad stats here that public sector and companies and everyone can really improve on that. 70% of women will say that menopause will affect their career professionally. There are also data that say that 40% of women are even changing job. And in the UK, for example, 12% of women are changing their job due to menopause. 65% say it also affects their relationship, right? Their personal life. And 70% say they will have mental health issues. And more problematic, I would say, Eleanor, as well, and it was my case, 1 woman out of 2 will not be well diagnosed for what it is. So for example, they would be prescribed antidepressant versus it was just some hormonal imbalance aspects that can be treated naturally. So I think this is a very serious stat that 1 out of 2 women is not well diagnosed on their perimenopause. And together with that, 65% of women didn't know they had started their journey as well. So we can do better in here. And this is the good news, right, is that there are some solutions, but about this subject around treatment, but for very severe symptoms, there are treatments out there, HRT, and we believe that our solutions, which are more natural solutions, explorations, are complementary anyway from these treatments that women can take out there.
Thank you. Yes, for the little story, I actually heard the term perimenopause for the first time in my life just after interviewing the Minister of Energy of the UAE, which I'd been waiting for a year for. And we had it at 11 o'clock outside a conference. Finally, I had my 15 minutes of fame with him. And whilst it was happening, I was standing up, and I remember I bought new shoes, you know, other women's issues. And so I'd been running around in these all day, every day for days, and done kilometers in these shoes. And I could barely stand. So I remember I was holding on to a chair that was next to us whilst holding the recorder. And suddenly I felt something strange happen. Anyway, long story short, I had to run to the ladies' room, and then I went to the first pharmacy, the first chemist the next day, and the lady asked me how old I was, and I said I was 37 at the time, and she said, oh, perhaps it's perimenopause. And I got very angry with her, as if she'd said some rude word. So that's how soon it can happen.
Yes.
Okay, so we obviously would love to talk about how we can alleviate these symptoms that you've touched upon. Perhaps for men, this might be a slightly more difficult topic to broach, certainly in some cultures around the world. But how can men support women during this transition?
Yes, and I will answer your question. I think I will come back to the how to heal, just to finish with my personal story, to give some hope here, to give a personal positive message. Through lifestyle changes, I have no more overweight, I have no more obesity, I have no more hot flash, I have no more anxiety. I've just worked on natural solutions, lifestyle changes. So, you know, there's hope here. And men can play an immense allyship, responsibility and help out there, right? So it may depend on different cultures of the world, right? We will see after, you know, some nuances among different continents, but on a personal level, at least if we're discussing personal level, and if men are listening to us right now, and if their partner is experimenting or is really having a bad time, not really sure about what's going on to her, you know, what can they do? So a lot. And the first thing is education again, right? So women should have a better education, but as men as well. So maybe offering this kind of education, exploring together, knowing that you're open without any jokes, you know, without, you know, bad judgments or easy judgments, like really being open to learn together with her. I think it's a very good start. You know, encourage her even to go to a GP, to read information, to search for information, have this safe and open communication with her. I think it's very important. Listen to her, validate what she feels. No judgment. It's hard, maybe, but I think it's important. Offer affection, you know, gesture, discussion, boost her mood as much as you can. And some, I mean, come on, basic stuff I would say as well, like help her at home, like ask her, what can you do to help, right? Just simple things may be a very, very great booster for her. I would say be patient. Come on, remember, it's hormonal changes. Changes as a teenager. It's just a bit later on. So you go through this phase. There may be some days that she'll be amazing. She'll see progress. She'll have less symptoms. She'll feel more energized. And there'll be, you know, days that eventually she'll be, you know, a really low energy. And you'll have to cheer her up and say, look, that's fine. I'm with you. And tomorrow will be better. And I guess celebrating milestones. And don't forget to have fun along the way. Like you're his partner, then, you know, her partner, you can make really a difference. So yeah, don't forget to be present, to be understandable, curious, learn together and support as much as you can.
Thank you very much. Yes, well, happy wife, happy life, they say. So it's in the men's interests to make sure.
So we get many questions from men. We get many questions from men on a personal level and in companies as well. Yes. So
interesting. Okay, and considering the growing awareness, because obviously we're now hearing, and we spoke to someone previously on the Qonversation who's an angel investor and believes that the femtech So tech surrounding women's health is the next big thing, besides obviously generative AI within the medical field. But considering this growing awareness of women's health issues globally that we're witnessing at long last, alhamdulillah, what advice would you give to businesses in emerging countries, high growth countries, let's say, or the global south, looking to implement inclusive policies that consider the diverse needs of their female employees, particularly regarding fertility, endometriosis, and menopause?
I would say, first of all, this is great news. Amazing. You will see so many benefits of being a diversity and inclusion leader, particularly integrating this women health empowerment and policies within your organizations. Because it's true that we may explore how public is treating this subject, but corporations and organizations have such a great advantage of going faster than public policies and make a big difference. So congratulations if you're thinking of doing so. I mean, the best companies we are seeing, right? The most valued companies in the world are the ones that are taking this approach and these strategies of being diversity and inclusion leaders. And so regarding female subjects and fertility, endometriosis, or regarding menopause, what we see, for example, in our field, right, is companies can start, for example, by running internal employee surveys to really sound where is the baseline if they are really starting their journey. I don't know, they may be very mature, but some companies are just starting. Come on, let's be realistic here. So starting by sounding your employee surveys, getting the baseline, implement and be surrounded by consultants to create this fertility or this women health or this menopause policies, training your workforce, training your management sphere as well, finance treatment, finance clinics, finance consultations, finance support, right, of any kind, of either free resources on internal webs or our specialists as we do, courses. This will make a big difference. And so the first benefits as well, if companies are listening to us and are like, oh yes, but like why, or I'm not so sure, sure it's in our DNA to do so. Multiple. The first one is financial, and they may see some great interest in that, right? Let's start with the financial. If you're thinking that because of fertility or menstrual pain or menopause, the cost of lost days are billions of dollars worldwide. So then by supporting, by these policies, by this training, by financing support, you reduce absenteeism. So therefore, you gain a competitive advantage in terms of finance, in terms of performance, right? If your global workforce is feeling more supported, more understood, is getting financial help to feel better, is feeling better, right? Mentally and physically, come on, it's a more performance organization as a whole, right? In terms of reputation, from a corporate brand to commercial brand to employer branding aspect, you will improve. And we know it's a talent war out there. The best companies are fighting to get the best talents out there. And therefore, to attract, to develop, and to retain the best talent, you will see as well some benefits out there. So yes, congrats if you're thinking of starting this journey, because it's wonderful.
It's a worthy one. Well,
yeah.
Thank you. So obviously you've lived in a number of countries around the world. We met and crossed paths for competing media once upon a time. How do cultural attitudes towards women's health, particularly menopause, differ in Asia, Africa, and I know Brazil's quite advanced in some respects with women's rights. So I wonder if that's also the case for women's health, and what impact does those attitude differences have on the workplace?
So I think globally, to start with, I think menopause is still taboo everywhere in the world. We have so much to break out there. We have so many voices to raise. just as a reminder. But it's true that then from continent to continent, and it's true, how can we, it's hard to generalize, right? Asia, so many countries, Africa, so many countries. But it's true that sometimes cultural parts, for example, cultural side from Africa will tend to think that women have a bit more, are a bit less resilient, let's say, or reluctant to discuss, or more open to discuss menopause in their workplace versus, for example, some countries of Asia where traditions have a bigger place here. And so it may be harder. But we have some great example in India, for example, where companies are really they've started to introduce executive women health programs, including addressing menopause. So it's interesting to see a country such as Asia where, yes, there is tradition for sure, but there is innovation, and there can be innovation in there. And in LATAM, we found some interesting as well examples in Mexico and in Brazil that, I think both countries very well, where it's the same. There are the best companies out there, the stock exchange companies out there. Some are really innovating and start by sounding and implementing endometriosis and menopause policies, workshops, financing, even in LATAM. So we see some good examples, and companies again can move maybe quickly than sometimes lay below.
Thank you. So are there any emerging trends or legal frameworks in these regions that address menstrual health, fertility treatments, menopause support, and how might these impact the workplace in the coming years?
So fascinating. You may be surprised by the examples I'm about to share. So legal landscape is evolving slowly but surely. Sure, there are rooms for improvement, you will see, in each country. But let's highlight the progress. I think it's positive to highlight, where we came from, and it's great to highlight countries that are really innovating in that sense. So Japan and Indonesia in Asia were one of the pioneers in terms of menstrual leave, right? So Japan introduced in 1947 a law where employers cannot force women to work during the first days of their period if it's painful. So great here. Now, if you see the states and the usage of the law, this is another interesting aspect. So if you watch out, 1967, where more than 20% of women were claiming this law, in 2017, so 50 years just after the law was released, not even 1% of women are using it. So room for improvement for sure, to understand the why don't women take more advantage of this law. Indonesia, nearly same years as Japan, so 1948, and each country is a bit different and has nuances in their laws, right? It's interesting. So in Indonesia, female workers could ask for the 2 first days of their cycle since 1948, but there's still negotiation in place between the employer and the employee. So again, maybe room for improvement here, not so much systematic. South Korea, interesting, as South Africa, actually. From a labor law in South Korea, every woman every year, every month has 1 day granted 1 day's leave. So no questions. In Taiwan, women can ask for 1 day per month, but at half of their wage. So it's great. It's a bit different than other countries. And where do you see some other things? In Vietnam as well, I think I've seen some interesting story. In Vietnam, women can have 30 minutes break on their first days. So extra break, I guess, on the first days of their painful period. And they can ask for some leave, which is great. And in Zambia, I know that you've been a lot in Africa, so we find some interesting example in Africa. So South Africa, the same thing as South Korea. So 1 day a month for every woman, every female woman, and every female worker. And in Zambia, it's called the Mother's Day, And it's the same, without any certificate or without any justification, without giving any reasons, every woman has 1 day a month. So I think it's slowly but surely, the legal landscapes is evolving. Now I think it's true that companies have this opportunity to go faster and show the way, be a diversity and inclusive leaders, maybe earlier on than even the law is evolving.
Thank you very much, Laetitia. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.